Being a self-published author does not mean you have to go it alone. Creating your publishing team of coaches, editors, cover and interior designers can make all the difference in the world between having a good book and a great book. Today, I am lucky enough to have first-time author Irene Freilich and her editor, Cheryl Isaac, together to talk about the importance of the author-editor relationship. Thank you both so much for joining me. Irene, I'd love to start with you. Your book has been out roughly about a month. Tell me how it's going.
I think it's going really well. I'm really excited about it. And I could not have done this well on my own. So that's also why I'm excited about it. I had a lot of great help along the way.
So speaking of that #1 bestseller status, you hit it.
I did. Thank you. Thank you for making that happen. I'm so excited about that.
So well, at least in my eyes, you went beyond expectations because your first week out, you hit #1 new release. In all of Amazon, not even kind of category specific, just #1 new release in all of Amazon. And then within the next 2 weeks after that, you hit, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you hit #1 in both Jewish memoir and #1 in Holocaust memoir as well, right?
Yes.
Congratulations on that success. That's amazing. If you could, tell us, #1, tell us about you as a first-time author, and secondly, tell us all about your book.
So I always have it next to me because I love it. I actually am in love because it's my life. But it's called Shattered Stars, Healing Hearts. And what it's about is unraveling my father's Holocaust survival story, which sounds very heavy. And so what I did starting in 2017 is research my father's Holocaust survival story. He had been passed away a long time ago, and I was able to figure out all the places he was. And so I went through a few years of literally retracing his footsteps and finding all the places where 18 people helped my family to survive, from Germany to Holland. And so my book is my story, unraveling my father's story. And there are dual points of view in the book, which was very challenging. I got some help with it from very good editors. But, I went back and forth in time, and I had to work really hard to ground the reader in where we were. But it turns out to be kind of a love story to, generations lost, and a healing for me of this, what I consider I have inherited trauma. So it was a big process for me.
Besides writing the book and it kind of being catharsis for you, you're also now speaking and creating your brand and becoming what I like to tell people is the business of being an author. So tell us a little bit about that too, if you could.
I love the speaking engagements. Especially because that's my opportunity to get with the people who care about the story and want to read it or have already read it. I just had an event yesterday, and it was wonderful getting to talk to people afterwards. They buy the book or they don't, and we talk. Either way, we talk about what their experience is, and they have questions for me. And I love that because I'm educating people. And hopefully I'm also motivating people to act, to do something, to not simply be a bystander when all kinds of awful events happen in the world, when all kinds of people need help. Right now, there's a lot of anti-Semitism. But when I wrote the book and when I started doing my presentations about 5 years ago about my father's story, there was anti-Semitism, but it wasn't like in the past month. And I am talking about the need to act for all groups of people. So I really enjoy doing that.
Cheryl, thanks for joining us. You were lucky enough to be Irene's proof editor for her book. And obviously her book would not be having the success that it has without quality editing. There are many first-time authors out there that are confused about the editing process and don't really understand it, which is really the point of having both of you two on at the same time. Because I'd like you to, one, tell us, what you do and a little bit about your process. and then kind of the relationship of working with Irene.
I am a copy, line, and a proof editor, and I primarily focus on fiction and nonfiction and memoir. My favorite genres, both personally and to review, are historical fiction, psychological thrillers, mysteries, women's fiction, and memoirs are always fun because it's great to really get to know someone and their experiences on a deeper level. And then actually, like in this case, where I can have a relationship with that author and really get to know them. And Irene, like you were saying, was a great partner to work with because she was so receptive. She did understand the process and just the collaboration. So, we were able to talk things out because I think something that first-time authors might be nervous about is losing their voice. And at least for me, that is something I am so focused on because they created it, the author. It's their vision, and it's done in their style and tone and their personality. So if I'm doing a good job, then you really shouldn't even know I was there. And I feel like when you have that opportunity to collaborate with the author, you're just going to get a much better product.
So as a coach and consultant, one of the things that's probably the greatest joy is connecting the right author with the right editor, because this really is a two-way street, right? You have to enjoy the project as much as the author enjoys the project, and it really is a collaboration between the two of you. And another key difference between whether you call them hybrid publishers or vanity publishers, or even some of the larger publishers out there. Number one, they don't encourage the relationship between the author and any other members of their team, whether it be cover and interior design or the editing team. And typically the author's voice gets lost because the publisher is editing in a style in which they think they want the story to be told. And so one of the biggest things that we can do as a publishing team is maintain an author's voice, and not only maintain it, but help improve it. Cheryl, one of the things that's interesting is getting feedback and occasionally criticism on their work. And I occasionally will have to coach an author in that, look, the author's job is to preserve your voice and make your manuscript shine. And sometimes that involves some feedback that you might not want to hear. So how do you handle kind of giving feedback and criticism gently with authors?
I believe in honesty with compassion. And hopefully Irene can attest to this. I really try to be truly honest. I know it could be very sensitive. People are working on these for months to years of their lives, and it's very close to them. And I want to make sure that first of all, I'm not just saying that was great, you did a great job, because although they might want to hear that, they can get that from anyone. They want someone who's going to tell them, this is what you can do to make it better.
Right.
So I will never say this is wrong, why'd you do it that way? That's not my place. And that's truly not my feeling. I might say, did you consider this option? Or, perhaps if you write it this way. I know that sometimes authors will have something in their writing that could come across offensive to a reader, and that's never the intention. And sometimes just bringing it to their attention is enough to help them to make the change. But so I definitely want to be honest and bring out anything that I've noticed, but in a compassionate way.
I wanted to take a moment from today's video to remind everyone that the one constant in the world of self-publishing is that things are always changing. We work with the most updated information we have at the time of every video release. But over time, trends, tools, and strategies can and often do change. That's why we encourage each of you to stay curious, do your research, and ensure you're making the best decisions with the latest information available. If you have questions or need advice tailored to your specific project, don't hesitate to reach out. We're always here to help. And hey, if you find our content valuable, give us a thumbs up. Every like encourages YouTube to share our content to a wider audience. Be sure and subscribe to our channel to stay up to date on all things self-publishing. We appreciate your support, and it inspires us to keep empowering indie authors just like you. Now let's get back to the video. Irene, since this was your first jump into the world of publishing, what did you have any preconceived notions of what to expect with the editing process? And secondly, what surprised you about going through this process?
I'll tell you first what I expected from the whole process was I could write my book in 3 months, be done, fine, no problem. I had no clue what I was doing. So I took it upon myself as a new author to do a lot of research to understand the different kind of editing, where I needed to get the book before I even went to an editor. And so it was really important to me because I wanted a great product out there. It was important to me to go through all those stages and listen to what my various editors, including Cheryl, shared with me, because they were reading it from a more objective place. I was totally inside myself, and I recognized that. So as hard as it was hearing some of the feedback, I've been so appreciative of the tough love that I got from my various editors and all the guidance that Cheryl in particular gave me about what was still confusing to her. Even when it got to a proof edit, things shouldn't be confusing anymore, but they still were. And I really appreciated when she pointed that out to me.
And so you brought up something interesting. You said your team of editors, including Cheryl, which means you had multiple editors. Tell us what that means. What was your process? So Cheryl obviously did the proof edit for your book. Tell us about the other portions of your team, because I think this is an important point that it does take a village to get a book edited. It's not just one pass.
Right. Yeah. So my first editor, who was a copy editor, read my manuscript and said, "You really need to take a class before I look at this again. I can't edit it." She said it in a very nice way. And so I did that. I took a few months of classes. Then I went to a developmental editor because I understood at that point I needed a lot of help with flow because it's a complex structure. So my developmental editor looked at the flow, made sure something in chapter 40 was not contradicting something in chapter 3. That's an amazing skill set. I don't think I could do that. And made sure that in my different points of view, I was grounding the reader in the right place and time, and I was not doing that well. So she really coached me along and taught me how to do that. After that whole rewrite happened, I then went to a copy editor, my original copy editor, and this is before I was introduced to Cheryl. And she did the copy and line edit with me. And that was also a good relationship as it was with Cheryl, where she identified things that still didn't make sense that the developmental editor maybe didn't catch. So she was very upfront with me. And then I knew the final stage was the proof editing. And it was great to have your team, Rich, put the manuscript out as an option to a couple of people to find out who was really excited about doing it. And I appreciated that, just having someone who is excited about the content or the genre being my editor. And so that worked out really well for me as well.
And so you essentially had 3 sets of eyes on your manuscript, which is a little bit out of the norm, but I'll say once again that it provided the best final product possible. But Cheryl, from your perspective, what happens when a typical manuscript comes from a developmental editor and then comes to you?
I would first ask if there's any kind of style sheets that the previous editor has created, keeping track of any characters. Generally, that would be made at the copy editing stage, but that's where I would want to start. So I would go through the book. First, I just read the book so I could enjoy it, my favorite part. And then I'm going through line by line and working on those either line edits or copy edits, whatever the author's looking for. I am going to go through that manuscript and make changes using track changes as well as comments. At that point, I will send it back to the author to review and accept or reject changes, and then go over any questions, and they can come back to me with any questions they might have. At this point, if they're only looking for a copy edit, that would be the end right there, and then they can move on. If they're also looking for a proof, then they can decide if they want to send it to the same person. I would then review it in a separate round, or some might choose to go to another proofreader just to have fresh eyes look at it. So it's really different views. They might want someone who's familiar with it and knows exactly where the weak spots are and what to look for, or fresh eyes on the other side. So if it were to stay with me, then I would read it through again, this time just as a proof. I would make sure everything was addressed from before, and then send it back to the author again to accept, reject. And then I'd follow that up with a Zoom meeting where we can go over any questions they might have, any discussions, anything going forward from there.
And Irene, did you find that process fairly smooth and straightforward?
Yeah, it was so incredibly easy to work with you, Cheryl. I really appreciated that. And I had a style sheet, and you, I won't say recreated it, but you added to it and made it what you needed it to be for a proof edit. So what you described is exactly my experience. And I liked having that final style sheet that was even more complete.
The style sheet not only helps the editor get through the work, it helps the author know what the editor did, but likewise, it goes on to the interior designer to help them know how to lay out the book. So the style sheet is used in multiple levels in multiple places. So it's a very important piece of the overall publishing process. So it's great that you had that. And I can't stress enough to aspiring authors out there to have multiple sets of eyes on your editing team look at your manuscript. As we mentioned before, it gives you the best product possible. Irene was fortunate that she had 3 sets of eyes. She had a different editor each point along the way. Typically, it's just 2 editors that will look at a manuscript. Either a developmental and line are done together, or copy, line, and proof are done together, one or the other. But I can't stress enough as a coach to have multiple sets of eyes look at your manuscript. Cheryl, parting thoughts and how aspiring authors can reach out to you.
My website is www.cherylji.com. That's CHERYLJI.com. Basically, just parting thoughts would be that it's a partnership. And I mean, getting to work with someone like Irene, who's totally open to that, is just a fabulous process all the way around. So not to fear working with an editor. I know a lot of, especially first-time indie authors are very nervous about their first experience in this realm, and not to be nervous that we'll walk them through every step and what they need to do, what we're going to do. So just go in with confidence. You've done a great thing. You finished your manuscript. This should be fun.
And Irene, parting thoughts for aspiring authors out there, especially given the success that you've achieved in such a short amount of time with your book.
Thank you. I'll repeat the advice I was given, which turned out to be so true. Keep writing. Don't give up. Take a break when you need to take a break. Sometimes that distance did help me. And do your research. Find out what you need, whether it's 3 editors or 2 editors, what kind of editors you need, and how to get your book published. So I spent a lot of time doing research, and I highly recommend that as well.
My parting thought for any aspiring author out there is to let the process take the time that the process needs. Do not rush any aspect of the publishing process, because something will ultimately fall down somewhere. Thanks to Cheryl and Irene both for spending some time with me. It just goes to show you it does take a village to help self-published authors achieve success. If you have a particular question, want our take on a particular subject, or just want to let us know how we're doing, leave us a comment. And while you're there, give us a thumbs up. Every like encourages YouTube to share our content to a wider audience. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can stay updated on information that can inspire your publishing journey. And remember, your words matter. So write courageously, publish confidently, and we'll see you on the next video.